Good morning. Today is August the 10th, 2022. Excuse me. 11:07 in the morning. Coincidentally, with it being 11:07, there is a 777 on my time and battery life. So the time is 11:07 and the battery life is 77. So 777. What I have been told by God to talk about is when it looks like that He's lied to you. So let me explain. Today is the day that I was supposed to be going to a court hearing for the purpose of my ex-wife last August of 2021 refused to let me talk to my girls one evening, and she got on the phone and was really ugly to me. So I filed contempt on her, and we have still yet to go to a hearing or trial, or whatever you want to call it, about this. Okay. The last time that we went to court was May the 17th of 2021. And that day, everything went her way. God told me to be quiet, wouldn't let me speak about what I knew needed to be talked about, and as the hearing ended, I was put into jail for 3 days, and because I couldn't pay child support for the previous almost a year because of COVID happening and the situation with my job. Not gonna go into all of that, but that was the reasoning. I'd never missed a payment until COVID had happened, and that caused that issue for me of being able to pay child support. So from that date to today is 451 days apart. Okay? And that number is a significant number to me, and that significant number is 451 and 452. That is, to me, is Isaiah 45 verse 1 and 2, and I'll read those real quick. It says, this is what the Lord says to Cyrus. He appointed his appointed one, whose right hand he will empower. Before him, mighty kings will be paralyzed with fear. Their fortress gates will be open, never to shut again. This is what the Lord says. I will go before you, Cyrus, and level the mountains. I will smash down gates of bronze and cut through the bars of iron. And when I realized that it was 451 days apart on August the 3rd of 2022, I was like going, wow, God, I'm going to get to see my girls. See, I haven't been able to see my girls since the last time I saw them in person. Woo, I'm going to try not to get emotional, but I feel it coming. Just even thinking about it. The last day I saw him in person was March the 18th of 2020, just right after COVID started and everything got shut down. My ex-wife and her attorney got the judge to make it where I couldn't see them in person. Long story short, I haven't seen him in person because she is desperately trying to keep them away from me, so that we don't have a relationship, and I basically get erased from their lives. And to her credit, it has worked to this point. And when I saw that on August the 3rd of 2022, I was like, God, you're going to finally let me see my girls when the 10th gets here. And I went, you've got to be kidding me that's going to actually happen. I couldn't believe it. Honestly, I couldn't believe what I had just seen. It was amazing that the timing of God's providential circumstances and everything that was going on over the last 451 days. And the next day, I just had this thought of looking up the number of days between August the 4th of 2019 to August the 4th of 2022. And it was 1,097 days. And let me explain what August 4th, 2019 is about. That is the day that God told me to do something very specific, and by His providence and everything, I basically, according to the judge's order, I disobeyed what the judge had ordered for me to do, which was return my girls to their mother on August the 4th of 2019. Well, that has started all of this custody battle again. It's been going on just over 3 years now. So why did I look up that on the 3rd anniversary of the number of days it had been? The reason is and why that 1097 is significant. It's because of another verse that God has told me was going to happen. Sorry, I'm trying to back up and get out of the roadway right here. It's a little difficult where I'm located to do. And it's 197 is what that is, and I believe that is Isaiah. Nope, not Isaiah. Oh, what is it? Hold on, I'm looking it up. Sorry. Okay. 2 Kings 19:7 says, "Listen, I myself will move against him, and the king will receive a message that he is needed at home, so he will return to his land, where I will have him killed with a sword." And this is, and to me, this is talking about my ex-wife and I. Actually, just my ex-wife. And sorry, I got a cough and it just won't go away. And this, listen, I myself will move against him, is the Lord saying this to Hezekiah and talking about the king. Well, right now, my ex-wife is in total control of my girls, and if I get to see them, if I don't get to see them, if I get to talk to them on the phone, the whole 9 yards. So, and it being, just a few days before, in fact, what was that? That would be 7 days before, right? The 4th through the 10th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, exactly. Oh, wow, I didn't even realize that. 7 days before the 10th, which is today, that God puts it on my heart to look up the number of days between the 3-year anniversary of and this is a perfect example of going through the fire that Mark 9:49 talks about. This is a very, very hard test, which is a type of fire that God allows to happen to see if the salt is good. You read Mark 9:49, it says, "For everyone will be tested with fire." In verse 50, salt is good for seasoning, but if it loses its flavor, how do you make it salty again? You must have the qualities of salt among yourselves and live in peace with each other. What are these two verses talking about? You know, when salt loses its flavor, it's no good anymore. It has no purpose. You know, and fire brings out the bad part of something that is melted down, such as gold or silver or something. You know, when you're refining gold and silver, you melt it down and you get the dross off of it. And this is one of those situations where God is getting the dross out of me and Michelle and my girls, you know, and we have to realize that's what's going on. And, you know, I may never see my 5 little girls in person again. You know, as young as they are, and as much as I desire to see them in person and give them a really, really big hug. Woo. Each one of them. You know, and tell them that I love them in person and that I miss them so much. But what if God never allows that to happen? Do I give up on Him too? Do I give up on that hope, that faith that I have, that He hasn't lied to me? No, I don't give up on it. There's no possible way in my mind at this moment. Sure, I could always do it, but there's no way in my mind right now that I could give up on Him right now. I just don't see it happening. You know? Could it happen? Sure it could. Definitely could. But at this moment in time, God has us in such a place that He wants to make sure that we are focused on Him and not ourselves. You know, and our desires. You know, and Satan is always beating us up. Both of us, about, you're never gonna see those girls again. There's no way. I mean, how many sleepless nights have I had over the last 2 or 3 weeks? You know, mainly over the last 2 weeks of, what am I gonna say when I get to court? What are they gonna say? What are they gonna be lying about to try to get more money out of me that I don't have? And you know, I lay in bed at night, you know, having these thoughts for 2 and 3 hours at a time, not being able to go back to sleep. And it's really, really difficult when you're going through this fire of turning that off, because Satan is just bombarding you with these thoughts. As I was making the first recording about when God lies, I got interrupted and had to pause it. So I am continuing it with part 2. So basically, what has transpired at this moment is the judge in this case has continued for the time being, this case, or this contempt against my ex-wife, until January the 23rd of 2023. So I get no relief. My girls get no relief from what they're experiencing, and me and Michelle doesn't get any relief from what we are experiencing, and everybody just missing each other really, really, really bad, and without cause. I mean, it's stuff that my ex-wife has just made up, and so far the court believes what she has been saying for whatever reason, and that is because God has allowed this to happen. So, you know, if if I was a normal person or a normal believer, I would say that God has lied. But in fact, it's the total opposite of him lying. He gave me peace that they are coming back 7 days and 8 days before today. And 7 days, or seven, the number 7 is a representation of God's perfect number. 8 is a sign of resurrection. So there's something coming in the future. It's just, will I hold on to that faith that I have? Will my wife hold on to the faith that she has? Will my girls give up and totally reject God because of this really, really, really long period of not getting to see each other? Will they reject me in the future? Will they reject Michelle in the future because of all of this? These 5 little girls are from 14 years old, will be 15 in December. The second one is about to be 14. And then there's 10, one just turned 9, and a 7-year-old. So, and there's a possibility that they will totally reject me, Michelle, and God, based on what is happening now. It's still a time into the future of when that will happen, but nonetheless, it can still happen. If that's God's will, then that's God's will, and I can't stop him and what his will is, unless I want to put myself first, and that is something that we always have to understand, that we have that ability to put ourselves first and ignore what God is telling us, and to do what we want to do instead of what God says to do. And when we do that, we end up in a place where we've disobeyed God a lot of times. So, and this is a perfect example of going through the fire that Mark 9:49 talks about. You know, this is a very, very hard test, which is a type of fire that God allows to happen to see if the salt is good. You know, you read Mark 9:49, it says, "For everyone will be tested with fire." In verse 50, salt is good for seasoning, but if it loses its flavor, how do you make it salty again? You must have the qualities of salt among yourselves and live in peace with each other. You know, what are these two verses talking about? You know, when salt loses its flavor, it's no good anymore. It has no purpose. You know, and fire brings out the bad parts of something that is melted down, such as gold or silver or something. You know, when you're refining gold and silver, you melt it down and you get the dross off of it. And this is one of those situations where God is getting the dross out of me and Michelle and my girls. You know, and we have to realize that's what's going on. And you know, I may never see my 5 little girls in person again. You know, as young as they are, and as much as I desire to see them in person and give them a really, really big hug. Woo. Each one of them. You know, and tell them that I love them in person and that I miss them so much. But what if God never allows that to happen? Do I give up on Him too? Do I give up on that hope, that faith that I have, that He hasn't lied to me? No, I don't give up on it. There's no possible way in my mind at this moment. Sure, I could always do it, but there's no way in my mind right now that I could give up on Him right now. I just don't see it happening. You know? Could it happen? Sure it could. Definitely could. But at this moment in time, God has us in such a place that He wants to make sure that we are focused on Him and not ourselves. You know, and our desires. You know, and Satan is always beating us up. Both of us. About, you're never gonna see those girls again. There's no way. I mean, how many sleepless nights have I had over the last 2 or 3 weeks? You know, mainly over the last 2 weeks of, what am I gonna say when I get to court? What are they gonna say? What are they gonna be lying about to try to get more money out of me that I don't have? And you know, I lay in bed at night, you know, having these thoughts for 2 and 3 hours at a time, not being able to go back to sleep. And it's just, It's really, really difficult when you're going through this fire of turning that off, because Satan is just bombarding you with these thoughts, and you struggle so much when this happens. But then I know after it subsides, I know that God has not lied to me, that, even though Abraham didn't see the children that is numerous as the stars, like God promised him, did it happen? Sure it did. But did Abraham actually get to visually see in person the many stars that God promised him? No, he didn't. Did he ever give up hope during that time? That's a good question. But he never stopped obeying God, though. The whole time he was always in relationship with God, even though he never got to physically and visually see what God was telling him was going to happen. It never came true during his lifetime. So I have to rest on someone like Abraham and get to see my life like Abraham. What faith that took to do that. And then you see someone like Job, that everything was taken from him, and in the end, everything that he lost, he received double of. Which one is God going to do with me and Michelle? I have no idea. Or is it even going to be close to either one? Don't know that either. But I'm still not going to give up faith that God has promised something and call him a liar. And that's really, really hard for us to do when we're in this fire, and we just have such a strong desire to have something come true, to tell people that God is not lying. When your own family rejects what you've told them that's going to happen, you have to rely on God's strength, to keep persevering and enduring these hardships and these trials and everything that to our human mind and body and everything, all of our five senses, none of it makes sense, and it's an impossibility that God is telling us that's going to happen. And you, at what point do you say, God, I give up, or God, I'm gonna keep going? Because there's two choices that you've got there. You can either give up on what he said is going to happen and bust hell wide open, or you can continue having the faith like Abraham had and never get to see the promise and be in the hall of faith like Abraham, a modern day hall of faith person, just like George Mueller that lived in the 1800s. He had such faith that he never asked anyone for anything other than God. Wow. I just said something about Mark 9:49, and there's a pickup truck that's right beside me that has 9:49 on it. Wow, what confirmation that I have that this is just another one of the trials that is to test my faith and to test Michelle's faith, to even see if me and her are going to make it through this, because Satan definitely is at work in trying to separate us in a lot of ways and a lot of areas in our lives constantly, and you have to just push him away when those things start happening, because me and her, that's all we have right now. We don't have our kids. She doesn't have her 3 in our life, and I don't have my 5 in our lives. And we have to constantly remind ourselves that God has promised that we're going to see them all again. And we are struggling some days. Sometimes it's her and sometimes it's me. A lot of times it's her more than I, but I think that is just that weaker vessel that God created for her to lean on him and to lean on me in that situation, of whatever that situation may be. So, I just wanted to make this recording and just talk about when it feels like God has lied to you. What do you do? Where do you turn? I think about the John 6:68 verse, and this is where most of the disciples, and there were many at that point in Jesus' ministry, that in verse 66 it says, at this point, many of his disciples turned away and deserted him, and that's Jesus. They deserted Jesus because they had no faith that he was who he said he was. He was being made out to be a person that was, did all these miracles, but at the same time, the religious leaders hated his guts because they didn't understand who he was. Oh my gosh. And here is a car that I just came up on, side by side, 2 cars. One has 669 on it, and the other has 645. Isaiah 66:9. Let me read that real quick. Oh my gosh, this is so cool. Isaiah 66:9 says, "Would I ever bring this nation to the point of birth and then not deliver it? Asked the Lord. No, I would never keep this nation from being born, says your God." What a confirmation that God is telling me, even as I'm making this video or this audio recording, to not give up. Trust in Him. I'm not a liar, and I'm going to do what I said. It's just when I get ready to do it. Not excuse me, not when you get ready to do it. And in 6:45 is John 6:45, as it is written in the scriptures, they will all be taught by God. Everyone who listens to the Father and learns from Him comes to me. And that in that verse is talking about, to me, of how I always have to continue to listen to Him and not other people or my thoughts or anybody that would keep me from being able to do the will of God, in my life. So I'm going to end it here. I think I've covered what I needed to cover this morning in these two audio recordings. I'm going to try to put them together where they are all in one format. And I hope you get a blessing out of this. Just remember, when God promises something to you repeatedly, and it's not you that has caused any of it, and that's a big key. You have to allow God to do the work and not you do the work. When you do the work, it becomes about what your will is and not what God's will is. And in mine and Michelle's life, we've totally surrendered everything, even our kids, to what His will is, and we're going to stay focused on that. Okay, guys, that's all I got.